Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Average Korean Man from South Korea. So, if you've been watching my videos for a while, you would probably know that my parents live in China, and because my father works in China, and my mom was here in Korea for about 3 weeks since Chuseok. And also, my father was here in Korea for about 4 or 5 days this week. And actually, they went back to China today in the morning. And I took them to the airport this morning. And every time I go to the airport, I realize something, and that is the airport is always busy and the parking lot is always full. So in the Incheon International Airport, the biggest airport in Korea, has a very big parking lot. Like there is a place for long-term parking and short-term parking. And for the short-term parking, there is a ground floor parking lot and first basement floor, second basement floor, and third basement floor, I think. And the long-term parking lot is also huge. I don't really know how many cars can fit in there, but it's really, really big. But every time I go to the airport, what I realize is that it's always full. And I knew that Koreans, now I'm talking about South Korea, of course, Koreans love to travel overseas, abroad. And it wasn't like this, but since a couple of years ago, traveling abroad, traveling overseas has become a big trend here in Korea. And I wanted to know why it is so popular. Traveling overseas is so popular here in Korea. So I did some research on that, and I'd like to share some information about this. And I also did some comparison between like Japan, because Japan is, a close country that is next to Korea. And anyways, yeah, let's take a look at the researches that I've done here. So, the population of Korea is 51 million. And last year in 2023, 22 million people went outside Korea, so traveled abroad for their holidays, and 22 million over 51 million is 43%. So 43% of Koreans went abroad last year, and that is a lot. So if you exclude like the seniors, the really old people who are not physically able to travel abroad, if you exclude those people and maybe very young babies, then I would say probably like everyone really traveled abroad last year. And that also including myself. I traveled abroad last year. I went to Indonesia last year. And there is a comparison I've done between Japan and Korea. And so in Japan, about 17% of the population has passports. But in Korea, about 40% of the population has Korean passports. So why is it that Koreans love to travel abroad? And there are, of course, so many reasons, but the reason number one is the land of Japan is about 3.7 times bigger than South Korea. And if you look at the map, Japan is kind of long like this. So they have, depending on the region, they have different climate, different environment, and different atmospheres. So really, Japanese don't really have to go abroad to feel the exotic, vibe, I would say. If you go to the north side of Japan, it's really cold there in winter. It snows a lot in winter, and it's not really hot in summer. And if you go to the south side of Japan, the climate is totally different from the north side of Japan. So the Japanese people don't have to travel abroad to feel the exotic environment. But here in South Korea, even though the north part of South Korea is much colder than the south part of South Korea, still there isn't much difference in environment. So wherever you go in Korea, it's always a lot of mountains with a lot of pine trees and like beaches and the oceans. And the food is pretty much the same. So Koreans feel like traveling Korea pretty much feels the same wherever you go. And it's kind of, we want something exotic. We want something that doesn't look like Korea, and that is why we travel so much. And that is one reason. And also the second reason is because we have a strong passport power. Now, having a strong passport power means Koreans can travel to other countries without visas, like many countries without visas. And most countries in the West Europe have strong passport power. In Asia, it would be Korea, South Korea, Japan, and Singapore, and maybe some other countries. And in North America, it would be Canada and USA. And those countries have strong passport power, which means they can travel to other countries, many countries, without a visa. And Korea is one of them. And that is why we travel a lot to other countries. And third reason I like to say is things in Korea is quite expensive. Now, if you come from US or Canada or maybe from Europe, depending on the country, you might say Korea is not that expensive. But at least to us Koreans, things here in Korea are expensive, like the hotels and the food are expensive. So many Koreans think, okay, I would spend a little more money and travel abroad, like Southeast Asia, countries like it would be Malaysia, Philippines, maybe Vietnam, and rather than travel here in Korea. I just have to spend a little more money and feel something very exotic. Different food, different environment, different people and everything, different culture. And that is also one of the reasons why we travel so much. And also countries like US or Canada, where the land is massive, they don't have to travel abroad to feel something new. So they can just travel other part of their countries and then still feel in different environment, still eat different food, still experience different culture and all that. And the last reason I like to talk about is quite sad actually. And I'm not just speaking my thoughts to you guys. I've actually done researches about this. So I'm telling you the researches I've done. And the last reason is because many young Koreans these days feel like there is no point saving money for the future. Because back in the days, I'm talking my parents' generation and before that, people used to save money and then they could buy houses or apartments with the money they've saved because the price of the apartments were not so expensive. But these days, many young Koreans feel like it doesn't really matter how much money they save, it's almost impossible to buy a house. In Seoul, I'm talking about in Seoul actually, because everyone wants to go to Seoul for their jobs because all the jobs are in Seoul and people want to buy houses inside Seoul. And you guys might ask, why don't you just buy a house outside Seoul in the countryside? Well, all the jobs that Koreans want are inside or around Seoul, so there's no point buying a house like far away from Seoul if they want to work inside Seoul. And apartment prices are crazy high in Seoul these days. So many people think like there's no point saving money because there's no way I'm going to buy a house inside Seoul. So I'd rather spend my money on traveling or on my hobbies or whatever. And that's why these days young Koreans travel a lot to overseas. And also you might also say, what, you don't have to buy a house. You can't always rent a house. Yes, that is also true, but I mean, I think this is just culture difference between the West and here in Korea. You can rent a house, yes, that is true, but at the end of the day, every single Korean wants to buy a house and have their own house. And also myself, I would rather buy a house than rent a house. And that's because it feels more like I'm like settled down. I'm not sure if this is the correct way. Feel more like stable and settled down. And I guess that is just difference in culture. Everyone wants to buy a house and own a house rather than living in a rent house. So those are the reasons why us Koreans travel a lot overseas. Anyways, I am going to end my video here today, everyone. Thank you for watching my video once again. See you next time. Bye bye.